Thank you, Aunt Lizzie. How are you?
Mary, I'm so delighted to see you.
Oh, I'm delighted to see you. I missed you so very much.
And I missed you. But I got all these beautiful postcards
You received
from you.
all my mail.
I certainly did.
Oh, very good, very good.
Oh, look at that.
I tried to pick the nicest cards that had the most color to them. Thomas, of course, helped me with that as well.
Was that Switzerland?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, you were in the Alps.
Yes, we were. It was
You know, I went
absolutely
there
beautiful.
too.
You did.
Yes, on my honeymoon many years ago.
Many years ago. It's just beautiful. And look at the lady's skirts there in the photograph.
And here you are in Venice.
Yes.
That romantic, lovely place.
Beautiful on the water.
Lovely.
Of course, Thomas's favorite was the
Oh,
boat ride.
Nellie, this was such a treat for me, you know? I kind of went back in time when I was a young lady.
Oh, I'm so happy you enjoyed it. I see you saved everything.
I did.
Oh, very good.
And you know, I have to talk about the wedding.
Oh,
That wedding was so beautiful.
it was a dream come true. Oh, do you recall how well everything was put together? And this one time, I was actually quite impressed with Mother's helping with the flowers as well. The white rose and the beautiful white lilies, and it's just everything was just so beautiful, like a dream.
Also, the beautiful picture.
Did not come out very well. Yes. My attendants were so beautiful in their gowns. Oh, and then all the detail that was paid attention to everything, and all the floor arrangements.
It was absolutely charming.
And I thought, at first, I must admit, I did think that at first I would have liked to have our reception, of course, at Aldara, because I'm quite partial to our second home here. But then, of course, Mother insisted on Conway. But after I had seen everything she had done for us, I was quite pleased.
I think, you know, I'm not too fond of your mother, as you know, but I do think she did a beautiful job of the wedding.
She did. And being at home and having the rooms around me where my father's political achievements and his sword collection were all about me, I felt my father's spirit with me. When I looked about on the golden oak paneling, and you remember how beautiful everything looked, I felt he was there with me.
I do too.
You recall, Father.
And I think it was so charming with your bridesmaids. They made an archway with their canes.
Yes, Aunt Lizzie. You recall, I wanted to speak to you about that. The beautiful canes, I was just looking at them, and I couldn't believe the detail. I saw pink and blue ribbon with sprigs of sweet pea adorning all the canes, and I had wondered if you yourself or Mother had a hand in that.
Oh, no, my dear. I think it was so charming. Your husband did that. Thomas did it. And you know, with him being a designer of the Titanic, to think
he did not want to be known for designing the flower canes.
This beautiful, very feminine, charming thing.
Yes, well, now I know why he wasn't advertising it everywhere. What the men at the yard would think.
That's right, I know.
They were so beautiful, all the detail. Oh, and then when we had left, of course, we went on to the solicitor's office immediately following, and then everything had been changed over. And then on we were to Ormiston House, your brother's
My
home.
brother's house. Did you find it very charming?
Yes, absolutely. But I must say, I don't know if your son felt the same way. When we first entered Ormiston, of course, you had the grand room and all the paneled walls, and the fireplace was nice and warm for us to welcome us. But then we went up to the bedrooms. And have you been in the bedrooms as of late?
Of course I have.
Okay, then you recall the beautiful Gothic windows.
Yes, they're gorgeous.
When we walked in, the ceilings were so very tall, and well, I was delighted with the room, but I must say your son was a bit overwhelmed with the room. He was already looking out the window and looking how high up we were on that floor. And I had told him, I must admit to you, I had told him to excuse me for a short while while I freshened up. And then I told him he would need to help me with my gown to get out of it. Well, Aunt Lizzie, you will never guess what he was doing when I came out. Your son was in the bed, and he had the covers pulled all the way up to his chin. Yes, and I thought, is he ready for an early bed? No, I pulled the covers away, and what do I come to find out?
What?
The bedclothes were covering him. He was completely in his traveling suit. In the morning suit from earlier. Everything, including his button-up shoes.
Oh, my Thomas is such a sense of humor, you know.
Well, I must admit, I was beginning to wonder if I was frightening him. Because I kept talking of our honeymoon, our wedding night, of course, being the most important, and he always shied away every time I talked about it. I think he will tell you he's quite tired after the first night as I chased him about the room.
Well, I hope things changed.
They did. Initially, of course, I asked him to help me to undress, and he said, well, Nellie, he said, can I just leave you there and put you up on a shelf and look at how beautiful you are? He said, you remind me of a china doll, and I prefer to leave it that way.
Let's have a cup of tea.
Let's have a cup of tea, thank you.
So tell us all about your going away outfit.
Oh, this was absolutely beautiful, and I must say that the beautiful Merry Widow hat that you had given me as a gift is just absolutely beautiful. I received so many compliments from so many ladies while we were abroad.
Well, you know, Nellie, I went to extra trouble getting that hat. I went to Paris to the lady who usually does my hats. I told her about your lovely going away outfit,
yes,
and she decided perfectly.
Oh, I found that also the beautiful colors. Of course, the traveling suit is the beautiful robin's egg blue silk with the white going with it and adorning the lapels and all. And it goes very well. The hat goes very well with my beautiful gray walking skirt and many of my other bodices. So I'm just so grateful to you. Thank you so much, Aunt Lizzie.
I had so much fun choosing it, you know?
I believe that the whole entire affair was just a dream come true. We all had a wonderful time. And as much as we do have issues with Mother, as always, she behaved rather well, at least at the wedding. Thomas did tell me while we were on holiday and on honeymoon, he was telling me that you wanted to speak to me about his calling cards.
I know. I was very, very upset about Thomas going to visit you when you were a young engaged couple.
Yes.
And you know, your mother would not let him in the house. I was so disgusted. After all, my son is a very handsome, very desirable young man. How dare your mother treat him like that?
Yes.
And you know, she even sent
me
his calling cards back.
And how many of those do you have, Mother?
I have a whole box. I'm so really disturbed about that.
Well, I am aware that when we were on honeymoon, he did tell me of the time that one of the very few times that he was able to see me when he came to call, and that he refused refused to leave the vestibule, the foyer, until he was able to see me. His mother was absolutely refusing my company at that time, so he refused to leave until he was able to see me. I had no idea that there were this many calling cards all about. I'm so very sorry about that, and it hurts. It hurts me deeply. I will speak to Mother about that.
Yes.
But to be honest with you, I don't truly feel that Mother is truly has a liking for really truly anyone. It could have been anyone that I was marrying or having someone court me. It would have been anyone. I don't believe that she would be happy with anybody.
No, I don't either. I think your mother is a very vicious lady. You know that? I don't like to say it.
Yes.
But I was so upset about that. You're not allowing my boy in your house.
Yes, I'm so very sorry. I can't tell you. I had no idea there was this many calling cards. May I see one of his cards, please? Thank you. Well, I'm so sorry, Aunt Lizzie. I now understand why you don't invite her to your society parties. I understand much more now. But enough of Mother. Let's go on and talk about... I was so excited the whole time. Thomas actually told me, he said, Nellie, what are you doing? And I said, I was writing notes to everything I wanted to talk to you about when I finally returned home. So I actually made quite a few notes, as you can see here. We had a wonderful time. We started the next day after the wedding night. We went on to Grenoble, and we caught the boat, and we took it across the channel to France, and then on to Switzerland. Oh, it was just absolutely beautiful, and a dream come true, and the water was just glistening. Oh, did I ever tell you about the times Thomas took me on the skiff, the Amethyst?
We didn't.
Oh, he would come to call, finally, after he had insisted upon my attendance there in the vestibule. And when he would come, we did many wonderful things together, Aunt Lizzie. He came one time and he took me aboard the skiff, the family boat, the Amethyst. Oh, it was just wonderful looking at him as he took me about, and he's so strong with his big arms, such a big man, as you say. And then he would come take me now and then in the motor car as well. And we'd drive along Strangford Loch, and we'd look about at the water and the beautiful vessels that were out and the other skiffs on the water. Such a wonderful time. But I must admit, though, once he would come and walk me about in the gardens. Have you been to the gardens at Conway?
Oh, yes, I have.
Has Mother let you walk about at the gardens at Conway?
She was very reluctant, but I insisted. I said, I love gardens, and I have to see your garden.
She wasn't very welcoming, I suppose. No. Well, I must tell you that I may laugh at it now, but when Thomas would come to call, he would take me about in the gardens, and we would get a bit away from, of course, the house, and the bushes were so high in some areas, 9 and 10 feet tall, as well as the tall trees, that he would walk around and he would get very close to me, and he would sing to me, "Let me call you sweetheart," in my ear. We had such a wonderful time. I love your son with all my heart. Always will.
Yeah, that was his song. You know that? Let me call you sweetheart. When he met you, I thought it was the most delightful moment of my life. He had met the girl. If I had the choice, Nellie, to choose the daughter and the wife of my son, it would have been you.
Thank you, Aunt Lizzie.
You were the perfect one.
Did he happen to tell you of the time we initially first saw one another aboard the Lucania in 1899? I was taking holiday. And, well, of course, your son, being your son, I saw Tommy, and he was walking about in the corridors, and he was taking notes. And I took notice of how tall he was, because as he would go into each room to write things down, he actually had to duck to enter each room. But that was the first time we laid eyes upon each other. And I, of course, didn't think he would take much notice in me, being, 8, 9 years younger than he. And he being, I felt he would be more interested in the older ladies, of course. But he did take notice, and our eyes met. And from that point, I've never forgotten.
Now, how did you meet?
Well, first, of course, the first initial was aboard Lucania, and then he would come to call, and I must admit to you, and I don't think you'll have a problem with it, I actually brought it with me. Had he shown you my dance card from the 1904 wonderful Christmas party I attended? I'm sure you'll take notice that there's two gentlemen, one being your son and the other Mr. Harlan, there in the dance card.
I don't think you had any lack of suitors, really.
No, not at all.
I think Thomas was very fortunate with all these young men.
Well, I must admit to you, I was really, of course, enjoying myself, and I didn't think you'd mind my saying. In fact, I think you'd agree with me. When we were at the party, I was gazing about, and of course I remember what you had taught me, as well as Mother, never to let our interest in gentlemen be known to them, actually. So I noticed that he and his pal Henry Holland had come with him, and they both were talking about me. I can see that. And behind my fan, I quickly glanced at them, and then of course behind them at everything going on, so over their heads, not to give them the impression that they had my interest. From that point on, and I don't know if you're aware of this, I was actually being courted by both gentlemen. Were you aware?
He told me he was very disturbed.
Yes.
He said, you know, Mother, I've met this lovely, beautiful girl, and you know, there's another fellow who's got his eyes on her.
Yes.
And I said to him, listen, dear, don't worry. If she's the one for you, it'll all work out.
Yes. Well, I will admit, Mother, I think you would be happy to learn, that she was, of course, saying that I was causing a mockery at her society parties, with I being courted by two gentlemen. And she insisted that I choose which of them shall court me, not having both of them. So, Aunt Lizzie, she locked me in my room until I made a decision, of almost a week, until I made a decision on which gentleman. But of course, it was your Tommy.
I tell you, your mother was really a terrible lady.
Yes.
Locking you in your room.
Yes, but I suppose it was all for the best.
I think so, because you chose Thomas.
Yes. Oh.
I was so happy about that. You know, Nellie, there was something that I was very disturbed about. And it was when Thomas had to get to the shipyard quickly, and he rented a room with two young ladies.
Yes.
How did you feel about that? Because
Quite
I was
upset.
very, very upset.
Yes.
I said to him, Thomas, people are going to talk about this.
I was extremely upset, and I must tell you, he would always say he would have a answer, an excuse for everything. The ladies are older than I, therefore there is no interest. I wasn't comfortable with that. And then he never once yet, and even on the honeymoon, let me forget of myself having both him and Henry court me. And he was telling me how wrong it was, and I should have picked one and not been being courted by both gentlemen. But yet he took a room closer to the yard with two women while we were courting. And if you think Mother's home was upsetting and the situation there, well, let me tell you, when I would go to see him once in a while, and I would be there, I was not well received. And I do believe one of the ladies is a seamstress, and I must say I don't really care for her work. And with everything that you've taught me, and Mother and the servants at Conway, I must say I do a better job, as do you. But no, I wasn't ever received very well. And would you believe they only have one servant? One. For the entire household. Yes.
Which makes me wonder, how did Thomas manage? They must have done an awful lot of personal things for Thomas, which I think was most inappropriate for a young man about to be married.
So I thank you for agreeing with me that you feel it's wrong. As I said, he never lets me forget my courting both him and Henry. It's something he doesn't seem to want to let go. But of course, I suppose because it's for him, it was different with him being there with the two ladies. And I said, he always would say to me, well, they're much older than me. I have no interest in them. Typical response, yes.
Nellie, what do you think of our telephone room?
Oh, I meant to speak to you about that. Did you miss Tommy's phone calls while we were...
I did.
Oh.
And I think he made this room so charming, you know, with the telephone. This way it's very private.
It's so welcoming and so warm. As I've always said to you and dear Uncle Tom, you are my second family and this is my second home. And actually, of course, I said that I wished that we would initially have the reception here at Ardara. Such a beautiful, beautiful home. But I have a complaint about the telephone. I was going to ask you what you thought of the newfangled contraption. You see, Tommy insisted in having the phone installed there at Dunallen. And he said it was because he was concerned that the men might need him at any hour of the night or any hour of the morning there at the yard. Okay, of course, I went along with that, as we do as women. We support our men and our husbands in all ways. But it seems that the phone, though, was only used when he would call you. We never received a call. The men really didn't disturb him very often. But each morning, I'd roll over about 3:30 in the morning, and would you believe your son was already missing from our home?
Really?
He was on his way to the yard already, worried that the men might miss him. In fact, on the honeymoon, he was concerned about the men at the yard. He couldn't take his mind off his work.
He's always been that way, even for a little boy, you know?
Yes.
And you know, he's always been fascinated with ships. As a little boy, I bought him a little ship, you know, to sail on our pond. Oh. And he was out there every minute of the day with this little ship, sailing the ship. And I said to him, you know, Thomas, I think one day you're going to be on a big ship. He said, Mother, I'm going to make a big ship.
And look at as early as the age of 16, he began his apprenticeship at Harlan and Wolff. It's quite impressive. And then continuing on his schooling with the other schools as well, the Royal Academical in Belfast there, when he wasn't at the yard. So I haven't, as much as I must complain as any wife would, especially being a newly wedded lady, that I miss my husband a lot. I have to say that once we returned from the honeymoon, I began to know the life of the wife of a naval architect. And I must say I'm adapting very well. I'm learning to, I suppose, I don't like calling them servants, but I consider them, as you do with yours, my second family. But of course I'm learning to address them properly and address all different chores and responsibilities. But late in the evening and early in the morning, I miss him terribly.
Of course you do.
It seems so very empty and cold when he's not there.
Well, you know, Nellie, you are a young lady. You are a young bride. It's only normal. But after a while, you will get used to it, dear.
I suppose. I don't think I should ever get used to being without Thomas.
I know you won't.
I love him so very much.
I know you do. And I'm so happy that the two of you got married.
Thank you.
I have a beautiful daughter.
Yes. Oh, and of course, I wanted to speak to you. On honeymoon, we spoke that should we have children in the future, we spoke about how we would go about raising them. Well, of course, I believe that the nanny should have a great part in raising the children. This way we have plenty of time for our society parties and our tea socials, our lemonade socials, and how we're supposed to be about finding our newest Merry Widow hat with the baby in tow, correct?
Yeah.
Well, it seems, and my husband told me that the way he was raised, I suppose Uncle Tom had you doing most of the work yourself? Is that correct?
Yes.
He insisted upon it, I see. Well, it seems your son is insisting upon the same thing, should we have children. So we're having a little bit of a difference there with that. But I suppose we will work it out.
But I did have a governess and a nanny, and I made sure that I had some free time. And
So-
you know, you've got to do the same thing, Nellie.
Thank you, Aunt Lizzie. Thank you. Perhaps you can talk to Tommy about that.
Oh, I will.
He doesn't seem to be quite understanding.
Yes.
And we seem to have a little bit of an argument now and then about that. So
And you
perhaps-
know something, Nellie? Every night at 8 o'clock, that telephone rings, And it's Thomas.
Yeah.
He calls me every night at 8.
So the phone here in this room, this is
Yes.
the one that you receive your calls.
Yes.
Oh, how very nice.
I think it's very sweet.
You must have missed him terribly on the
I
honeymoon.
did.
Oh.
But now he's home, and I'm so happy about everything.
I'm so happy to be home and be back with you. I missed you so very much.
Yes.
Now, had he spoken to you? I had written it down, actually, all the things he was telling me about what's upcoming at the yard. Had he told you about the new contract that's been signed?
He told me a little about it, but you explain it to me.
Well, it seems that they have signed a contract for these Olympic-class liners that will now come into being. And from what I understand from Thomas, he was describing them to me, they are going to rival even the Cunard liners, Lusitania, Mauritania.
Wow.
Yes, they're going to be even larger than that. And he said they will first come, the first liner will be called the Olympic, and the second sister will be called the Titanic. And then later to follow, he said there will be 3 sisters. It will be called the Gigantic later to follow.
Wow, that's very,
yeah,
very
he had not
interesting.
spoken of this to you.
I'm so proud of him, you
Yes.
know? And I do know my brother has encouraged it.
Oh, yes, and I must say I'm quite impressed at how hard... I've always been impressed with how hard your son works, and your brother doesn't treat him any kinder than any of the other workers there at the yard. He has to work just as hard, if not harder.
I know. My brother spoke to me about Thomas. He said, you know, Thomas is very brilliant. He said, and I'm going to guide him every inch of the way.
Yes.
He said,
Uncle
we are
William.
going to do magnificent things
Yes.
together.
Uncle William.
So I was very pleased about that, because sometimes, you know, a nephew doesn't get any attention.
That's very true. That's very, very true.
And my brother has been so sweet and kind. We must give him credit.
Yes, yes. And I will never forget our wedding night at his home, and I'm sure your son will never forget it as well.
I think that is a wonderful honeymoon remembrance, right?
Yes,
With
wonderful memories.
Thomas in bed, fully dressed on his wedding night.
With his bedclothes pulled all the way up to his chin before I pulled them away to see what was happening. Was he going to bed early? I wasn't sure.
Yep.
And I was still in my wedding gown for the solicitor's office. I was still dressed, but as I had said, he was just happy to leave me up on a shelf and look at me like a china doll.
So what are you going to do with all your free time?
Learning, of course, the ways of the home at Dunallen. Not certain as of yet. I'm still, my head is still in the air over the wonderful honeymoon. But I've noticed the time, and I can hear your clock ringing, and I do think I'm going to have to leave shortly. Thomas is going to be home soon.
Yes.
And I always wait for him in the front drawing room, and I welcome him, and I sit there, and I listen to his day at the yard, and I miss him so very much.
I
But
know you do. And I think this calls for another cup of tea.
Yes.
I'll call Tilly. Tilly, would you please come? You know, that girl never comes when I ring.
oh, I know I'm having the same issue back at the house.
But we'll have many more good
Yes.
cups of tea.
Yes. Thank you, Aunt Lizzie.
Thank you, my darling.
Thank you.